Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the Ruston Small Business Month podcast, coming to you from the Origin Podcast Suite. This month, we are celebrating the heart of our community, our incredible small businesses. So let's dive in. Good morning, Harvey Patton with Pattons and Oliver and Grace Antiques.
Hey, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming. So let's start with Pattons. What is the story behind y'all's business, and how did you get started?
Well, when you talk about any of our businesses, you basically first start with family, and so Patents for us is a family business. Started back in 2007, so we're on the cusp of our 18th anniversary. And so here's the backstory for that. I lived in Shreveport, was in the insurance business. My younger brothers, I'm the oldest of seven. Let me set the table because it does play into most everything. So I'm the oldest of seven brothers, and so I lived in Shreveport.
Boys?
All boys.
Wow. Poor mother.
If I had $1 for each time I've heard that in my life. And so I was in the insurance business in Shreveport. My wife and I had lived there for many years. And as my brothers were starting to graduate from college and starting to come into the workforce, I wasn't seeing them have the opportunities I wanted them to have. And so I started helping them start businesses, buy businesses. And so we owned a commercial feed business for a cattle feed business. And then we owned some commercial real estate and some different things. And so one of my brothers had worked, or several of my brothers had worked in retail. And one of them came to me and wanted to open a Western store. And so I said, I'll bankroll that and help you with the accounting. And I thought it would be, a few extra hours a week added to my existing routine. And I was very wrong. It was a, full-time business.
And that was in Ruston?
Our first location was
in Ruston. Okay.
But I was still living in Shreveport and would drive over multiple days a week just to help them. And it turned into another full-time job really quickly. So that's almost 18 years ago, that we started that.
So once it became full-time, you got out of insurance and
so I did
career
both. I did both for about 3 years.
Okay.
And it got to a point where it was just too much. And my insurance partners basically, told me to pick,
Choose which
one I wanted to do. And so I gave up the really lucrative one for the one that I enjoy
Sure.
One that I enjoy.
I get it.
doing.
I get it. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you face?
Well, our business has changed so much over the years. When you think about, where we first started, our original location in Ruston was only about 1,800 square feet.
Where was that?
That was over on Farmville Highway, and so it's the place that where the venue is located now was our original location.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time, fitting out this 1,800 square feet to basically have outgrown it 14 seconds before we ever started. So we had to add some portable buildings behind that location for storage. And it was too small, so in hindsight, we would have chosen a bigger location from the beginning. And so we operated there for about 3 years. And, the spot where that we own now, where our main store is located here in town, became available. And we had so many customers who drove big trucks and pulled trailers, and we wanted to make sure that it was convenient for them to shop with us.
Park.
And so we had some reservations as to whether or not a building inside proper city limits would accommodate us. And I just thought that the foot traffic and the daily cars driving by from the interstate to downtown Ruston and to Louisiana Tech would be beneficial. And so we acquired that location, and it's been it was the right decision. We didn't know it at the time, but it turned out to be, it changed our business. It allowed us to really grow and do what we do today.
So what year did y'all
move to we moved to the location we're in 2010.
Okay. So so Patton's downtown.
So Patton's downtown we started that in 2012. And so one thing that was unique about our Patton's, our Western wear store at the time, is we didn't operate in a box very well. We always wanted to do what we wanted to do, whether it made sense or not from a distribution standpoint. In the old days, stores were either outdoor stores or they were hunting stores or they were Western stores. There weren't stores that combined all of those things. And so we wanted to carry some specific brands, Southern Marsh, Southern Tide, North Face. We wanted to carry those brands in our shop. And at that time, those brands were not open, to distribution in a Western store. And so we acquired a small shop downtown called Perry Outfitters that was it was started by Kelly Hogan at the Fashion, and then it was acquired from her and became Perry Outfitters, and then we acquired Perry Outfitters, which was basically just a shell of a business that we were then able to take and grow and add all of those brands that we wanted to carry in the Western store. Fast forward probably a year or 2 years, most of those brands started to recognize that we knew what we were doing, and they allowed the distribution back into the Western store. And so now you actually see some duplication of product lines in both
stores. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
It does make sense. How do you build your customer loyalty in a world of online shopping? And
Well, our business is really built on uniqueness. And by that, I mean it's a uniqueness of product because we do carry things across different product lines. You've seen other people adapt to that over the years, but we've done that, from day one. One of the biggest things, though, is the uniqueness in the way that we do treat our customers. There's a pretty good chance that someone with the last name Patton is going to be serving you when you come into that location. And so we've just invested a lot of time into developing those relationships, and that uniqueness in the marketplace has allowed us, to be successful.
So everybody, I have a few friends in Shreveport and a few friends in Monroe, and they have to come to Reston to get their clothes for their boys because y'all are really the only ones that carry those lines. Well, the Southern Marsh and the North Face for, like 14, 15-year-old kids. Like it's a really important, huge thing.
Yeah, and people
Don't go anywhere.
people ask us all the time, because there's less than a mile. We're sitting today about halfway between, the two shops. So you're talking only a few blocks from one another. Why do you have two businesses that carry a lot of the same things and you're only a few blocks from one another? And it is because our customers are different.
Yep.
There are people who are acclimated to shopping downtown, who are acclimated to the more collegiate mix that we do, in that location, and then there are people who, they're more comfortable shopping in our bigger, flagship store. And so it allows us to really serve several different, groups of customers that you might not serve if those two locations
Were the same.
combined.
Yeah, it really does make sense.
it does. And the fact that, I have a husband that likes to feel. If it doesn't feel right, he's not buying it. So he can go into Patton's downtown and he loves the T-shirts. He can feel them and all of that. And, he comes home with quite a few all the time. So
And we're thankful for that.
So who does your buying? Like, who
So
picks out all your
it's a
stuff?
little bit different mix. And so at the Western store, Patrick and Thomas are going to do most of the Western buying. And then I will still be involved on a lot of the outdoor brands.
Okay.
Even my brother David, who runs the downtown store, will still be involved in some of the conversations on the brand mix that we're going to carry there. So it's there's two or three of us,
And so y'all really do pick all of this stuff out. What about the boutique stuff in Patton's downtown? Because it's really great.
So my brother David and I have basically been the lady buyers there for a year since we started. We had a record of not missing market in Dallas for probably 10 years, and so we would go over to Dallas and buy, and then we have a lot of online resources that we utilize to to pick product. Sometimes it's probably a little bit easier, being guys picking for ladies because we're able to pick things that are visually that visually look pretty to us without
that friends. Yeah.
So
Okay.
we sold a lot of ladies' clothes over.
But really, it's one of my favorite places. We're number.
So you kind of answered, how do you stay on the fashion trends but at the same time you keep things that are timeless and that are going to carry over from season to season too.
Yeah, and a lot of that is just our approach to buying is the same in in our clothing stores. When we talk about our antique shop, it'll be the same way. We buy things that we like. We buy things that we think will look good on people, that will make people feel confident and comfortable. Things that match the lifestyle, that they live. And so in the old days, it wasn't unusual for us to be buying, work boots in the morning, and really nice dresses in the afternoon. And it's a really diverse mix of products that we carry, across the stores. But it's been very purposeful in what we buy and what we do.
Well,
Do you see that you sell more Western stuff at the main location, or do you sell more of your hunting gear?
Well, we're obviously sell more Western there because we carry more Western there, but we do have a tremendous following of people. Our customers they don't think when they walk in, they don't think I'm going into the Western section or the outdoor section because they mix those things in their life. They wear those things together. There's no separation in their mind. And so
just shopping.
Yeah.
they're just shopping. They're picking things that they like in the same way that we've picked things that we like, for them to possibly choose from. And so we do sell, we sell a lot of both.
Well, cowboy boots and camouflage go hand in hand.
Yeah,
So, I mean, if you think about if you're on a college campus, in the fall, there's a very good chance you're going to see, a guy, he's going to have on a pair of camo, or he may have on a pair of Wrangler jeans and boots, and then he's got on a polo that would not have come from a Western, so he's wearing things that in the old days, the Wrangler jeans and boots that he wore would have been considered Western, but the polo that he was wearing would have been considered collegiate or preppy. And so, we mix those things. And
you really know your fashion, Mr. Harvey. That's pretty impressive. It really is. So let's talk about Oliver and Greg.
okay, we can do that.
Ooh, this is my fun.
Okay, so I asked Elizabeth, we were going over the questions, and she's like, do you know the story behind the name? And I said, no, don't tell me. I want to wait. I want to wait until I get the story from you.
So the fact that we're in Ruston and you already have Patton's Western Wear and you have Patton's downtown, so we've already dealt with the name confusion of having multiple locations in Ruston for so many years. To have a third entity that had the name Patton's anywhere in the name was not going to
Was off the table.
And so we toyed with a lot of names. We spent a lot of time just trying to figure out, something that really resonated with us and that customers, could phonetically mention to one another. And so Oliver is my son's middle name. Grace is my twin sister's middle name. And so Oliver Grace.
There we go. Right. That is perfect. I love it. And it's so fun to go shopping there.
No, it's one of my favorites. Well, I think my mom is in there every week.
Hopefully.
If not twice a week. So yes. And it's something that I feel that we've needed in this town.
Yeah, one of the biggest blessings for us in that business, and we didn't know that when we, were opening it, but it is the number of people, especially elderly people, who may not have a significant other anymore. It gives them a place to come in and, and for us to love on them, for them,
And
them
that
to be
is
surrounded by
exactly
things
how
that
it
are
feels.
comfortable to them,
Mhm.
and for us to just really, pour into their lives to meet them and, and just serve them in a way that's far beyond selling them something when they come in the door. We have countless customers who come in just to look around because they're surrounded by things that are familiar to them, that they're comfortable with, that remind them of mom or grandmother. And so if we
That's so awesome. And really it is like going into like your family home, and Miss Jessica, everybody's talking and visiting, and it's just such a comfortable, wonderful place to go.
Mom and Jessica have become real close.
it's because Jessica loves people.
Yes.
She's the best.
We haven't talked about Jessica, but Jessica's my wife, and so she would have been here this morning, but her mother passed away a few days ago, and so she's trying to get everything kind of pieced back together in our lives. But Jessica is the lifeblood of our business there, and so when you come in the shop, you'll see a lot of stuff. You'll see a lot of product, and I'm primarily responsible for the picking of that product. I go all over the place, to find it, but she's responsible for the merchandising. And so that's a talent that she has in spades. And so, if you visually like what you see when you come there, it's because she spent a lot of time and effort thinking about ways to present it to people so they can envision how to use that in their
house, how to style it.
She does a fabulous job. I mean, I'm always looking on Instagram and say, "Oh, new stuff. What's in today?"
So, how's the rest of the community? I mean, it's embraced it. It just
Yeah, it's been really well received. I would say really regionally, because we have a tremendous number of constant customers from Shreveport. But our Ruston community has really welcomed what we're doing, but it has expanded beyond just Ruston. It's a regional audience, and each week we have people, a lot of out of state customers as well, because there are things that we're doing that are unique.
that's really
People
cool.
really travel,
Yeah.
to see what we're doing.
That's awesome.
That is cool. I know that you're the one that drives all over.
Yeah, I'm the madman. I will drive a long way for junk.
You just drove to, remind me, Connecticut? Or
we were in Connecticut and Massachusetts last summer, but I recently just got back from Virginia and Maryland.
That's right.
Driving?
Driving, yes.
A big old
Yeah, so I have a dealer friend in Massachusetts, and so she and I had worked together to come up with a trailer load of product that I wanted to bring, and so she met me in Virginia, and we loaded
wow.
2,500-mile round trip. But
Look, you're speaking my language, though. I mean,
it's like, it's less of it. Do you have a particular style that you gravitate towards?
well, our store is unique in the fact that we do both vintage and antique, and so we have enough space there to cover a lot of grounds, even within those categories. You'll see a lot of really different styles across the store, but it goes back to the same conversation we had on the clothing stores. Our customer didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't buy it because it was just this one category. They bought it because they
liked it.
And so it's the same approach that we use when we're buying there. I don't limit myself to just buying, one category because I like it. I buy things that I like, and it just happens that some of those things are antiques, some of those things are vintage, some of those things are this style or that style, but at the end of the day, it's pieces that we like, and they just happen to be across different categories.
Well, you have a great, from primitive to your books and all of that kind of stuff. There's a great mix of stuff in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this will be like our last question, but I like this one. What's been the most exciting, unexpected find since opening Oliver?
I really gave some thought to that because I was trying to think, is there one particular thing? And there have been dozens, and some of them are really valuable monetarily, and some of them are just really special or unique. It may be something that's value is only, $10 or $15, but it's just really, has a sentimental value to it. We were collectors of blue and white china and porcelain and glassware before we ever opened the store. And so as we've been in different parts of the country, different customers, it's been really neat to really see and touch and acquire, some really old pieces of blue and white that you just don't see every day.
Oh, yeah.
You just don't see them every day. And so we've had several pieces of, of blue and white that's been really,
Really cool.
Not in the store right now there's a pair of mid-century modern cabinets they're from Broyhill. They're called the Brazilla. And they were only produced for a few years in the 1960s, and they just have a really distinct look to them. They're very, very desirable for people who collect mid-century, furniture. And there's a untouched pair of those in the shop.
Check them out.
That we basically were able to we got them out of an estate, and they had not been moved since they were placed there in the early 60s. And so we took those pieces and cleaned and loved and oiled and polished and all the things that we do, when
Wow.
we get furniture, and basically brought them back to life. And to have one is rare. To have a pair of them is extremely rare. So it's it's really neat. Really neat set. Of things that we.
You do a lot of Googling.
Uh,
Just like try to figure out where it came from, what years. Like,
we probably spend half our week in what we call price discovery, which is basically trying to research the things that we've, found and understand, what our market will allow us to price things. And so we spend a tremendous amount of time, online on Google and other search engines, just really, trying to figure out,
the value, the price,
yeah,
the
but
fair, yeah.
and a lot of the things that we do are unique to this market. So it's not like there's 5 other people who are offering these types of products that,
That you would know a price range.
Right.
on.
So it's a very large part of our work week is spent in that process.
Mhm.
And
Makes sense.
it's really challenging.
I can see that.
No, because it's so depending, I think, too, where you are located in the country, things
Sure.
go for different pricing than they would. Something that you may buy up north may not go for as much, or may go for more down here.
In most instances in our area, it's going to be a percentage lower than what you would find on the East Coast or the West Coast. There are very few things that command, a greater price, in our area than they do
And then other
in other, other parts of the world. Even on a regional basis, if you were to go to Dallas or you were to go to New Orleans, you're going to see, multiples, things that we may sell for $10 would normally be, 12 or 16 or $20.
and in
that's
that
more.
market. So cool though. 2 totally different realms. Western wear and antiques.
Yeah, it is, but it isn't, so, it goes back to the end of the day, for us, it's, it's about family, we're working together, as family and, in all of our businesses, and then the customers that we have, those relationships, it's
Go across
it's
the-
all about the relationships and, in all of our businesses. And we focused on that from day one, and any success that we've had is because of that.
Well,
Very
we're
loyal customers. I know that.
We are very blessed to have
Yeah.
loyal customers.
we are very blessed to have the Pattons. Yeah. Here's the
I'll be in later to
Yeah, we're coming
Let's book
it
codes.
up in later. Thank you so much.
So just so that you do know,
Yes.
because Oliver Grace is a little different hours than our other locations. So Oliver Grace is Wednesday to Friday, 10 to 5:30, and Saturday, 10 to 4.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
We're going shopping.
Mom knows. Can't go until Wednesday.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Mr. Harvey.
For having me.
We enjoyed having you.